businessman, we will tell you about the impending strike by doctors and the threats by the US president. Stay with us. Government has unveiled a far-reaching policy to introduce reusable, high-quality textbooks in schools nationwide, aimed at reducing the financial burden on parents and improving learning outcomes. The policy framework jointly issued by the Minister of Education, Dr. Tunji Alausa, and the Minister of State for Education, Professor Sawuba Said, seeks to cut the rising cost of education, promote sustainability, and restore quality to instructional materials used in classrooms. Dr. Alausa said under the new guidelines, schools will adopt standardized durable textbooks designed to last between 4 and 6 years, while the practice of bundling disposable workbooks with textbooks has been prohibited. The federal government also introduced a uniform academic calendar to ensure consistency in teaching, learning, and school planning across the country. In addition, graduation ceremonies have been streamlined. Only pupils and students completing primary 6, junior secondary school 3, and senior secondary school 3 will be permitted to hold graduation ceremonies aimed at an unnecessary spend. Businessman Aliko Dangote has taken his corruption complaint against former managing director of the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, Farouk Ahmed, to the EFCC in Abuja. Dangote, through his lawyer Dr. Oje Onoja, filed a formal petition urging the EFCC to investigate allegations of abuse of office and corrupt enrichment and to prosecute Ahmed if evidence is found. The move follows the withdrawal of the same petition from the ICPC, as Dangote said another agency was better placed to handle the case. Dangote has said he will provide evidence to support his claims, which include questions about Ahmed's reported financial dealings, including significant expenditure on his children's education abroad. The EFCC has been asked to act swiftly. The Nigerian Association of Resident Doctors has announced the resumption of an indefinite strike from Monday, January 12, with resident doctors at the University of Port Harcourt Teaching Hospital, UPTH, joining the nationwide action. The decision followed an extraordinary National Executive Council meeting held virtually last Friday, where the association reviewed the federal government's failure to fully implement the Memorandum of Understanding earlier reached with NARD. Reading the communique, President of the Association of Resident Doctors, UPTH, Izine Kalu, said the doctors are dissatisfied with what they described as persistent delays and outright non-compliance with key agreements, including the payment of salary and promotion arrears, specialist allowances, and the full implementation of professional allowance table.
Persistent delays in progress of the regulation of locum engagements and prolonged work hours, despite early agreements on the establishment of appropriate tax committees by the Federal Ministry of Health and the Social Welfare. The collective bargaining agreement process remains stalled and requires urgent resumption and timely conclusion. The continued non-payment of outstanding salaries and allowance arrears. Government has not taken proactive measures to address the deteriorating state of infrastructure and the prevalence of obsolete equipment across health institutions.
Carlos said NARD resolved to reject the decision of the Federal Ministry of Health and Social Welfare to redeploy 5 disengaged resident doctors of the Federal Teaching Hospital Lokoja, demanding their immediate and unconditional reinstatement in line with earlier committee recommendations.
The NEC observed with grave concern the decision of the Federal Ministry of Health and Social Welfare to redeploy the 5 disengage resident doctors to the Federal Teaching Hospital Lokoja to another Federal Teaching Hospital. This action is at variance with and contrary to the clear and unambiguous recommendations to the fully constituted Federal Ministry of Health and Social Welfare Committee, and demands the immediate and unconditional reinstatement in FTH Lokoja, in line with the recommendation of the duly constituted committee.
Not further resolved to insist on the resumption of stalled collective bargaining negotiations, payment of outstanding salaries across affected federal and state tertiary hospitals.
The NEC demands the immediate transmission of the compiled promotion arrears owed to resident doctors across several institutions to the Budget Office and to the Federal Ministry of Finance for prompt processing and payments. The immediate transmission of compiled salary arrears owed to resident doctors in affected institutions. The full implementation of approved professional allowance table, including the payment of accrued arrears, and insist that these arrears be comprehensively captured and funded in the 2026 national budget.
U.S. President Donald Trump has warned that the United States could launch additional military strikes in Nigeria if attacks on Christians persists. President Trump issued a warning during an interview with New York Times, where he was asked whether the Christmas Day missile strikes against the Islamic State terror group signaled the start of a wider military campaign. President Trump admitted that Muslims are also being killed in Nigeria, but added that the victims are mostly Christians.
And now we'll bring you news.
And now from the foreign scene, more anti-government protests erupt in Iran for a 13th day in a row. It comes as the country's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, lashes out at people demonstrating on the streets. Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, who has ultimate powers in Iran, dismisses protesters as a bunch of vandals trying to please U.S. President Donald Trump, who threatened to hit Iran very hard if government forces kill protesters. The protests, which began in Tehran on the 28th of December, were sparked by the collapse of the Iranian currency. International news organizations are barred from reporting inside Iran, and the country has been without internet for the past 18 hours. The UK government has called on the Iranian authorities to exercise restraint and says it supports those who exercise the right to peaceful protests. Before we go, Rivers elders have now added a voice to the move by the State Assembly to impeach Governor Fubara and his deputy. You also heard in the news that former presidential candidate Peter Obi is worried at the level of poverty in the country amid political infighting. Resident doctors at UPTH say they will join the nationwide strike by doctors scheduled to start on Monday, 12th of January 2026. And U.S. President has threatened more strikes in Nigeria over alleged Christian genocide. Another foreign scene, Iran protest has entered its 13th day amid supreme leader criticism of protesters. That's our package, as edited by Onyekachi Wosu. The region news team send an SMS or WhatsApp message to 0808 721 7215. I am Okey Onwubono. Good evening and many thanks for listening.